So there was another shooting here in Texas, uh, performed by the police against an innocent citizen in their own home. And the unique thing about this shooting was that there were no unique details. The things that would normally give a person pause and say, "Oh my God, that should never happen," weren't even eyebrow raising because of they happen all the time.
Right.
The lady was, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. She was in her own house playing games with her nephew. A neighbor was concerned because there were lights on in her house because I guess something to be concerned about. And so he called the non-emergency number for the police to come do a wellness check. Now, you're not familiar with the wellness check, and many people aren't, I've learned. A wellness check is when a cop that is on that beat, it's on his route, okay? He just pulls his car over and knocks on a door. One cop, one door. That's supposed to be how it works. Well, they brought, I guess, 3 loads of cops, 3 carloads, and they did not knock on the door. Instead, they walked around the perimeter because they were afraid there was a burglar involved. And apparently, these days, burglars are a cop's worst fucking nightmare. They do not want to see burglars. And so this cop saw a silhouette in a window. And without identifying himself as a policeman, ordered this person in the window to show their hands. Now, this person's in their house and can't see anything because the lights are on inside the house. If you've ever been inside of a house at night and with the lights on, you know that you cannot see what's outside. And this cop shot through the window and killed the lady with one bullet. And like I said, that's simply not unusual today for that to happen. But the neighbor who called the cops said something interesting. He said, "Well, this makes you not want to call the cops. Should I ignore something that is suspicious? Should I ignore something that's not right because I'm afraid of what the police will do?" They tell you, if you see something, say something. Well, I did that, and a woman who did not need to die died. And I find that interesting because a cop friend that I knew years ago told me that exact same thing literally nearly a decade ago. He said, "Man, you see something? Don't call the cops. Go handle it yourself. If somebody comes and robs me and I'm a cop, I'm not calling the cops. I'm going to handle that myself." That's how cops think. I'm not sure why we don't think that way. Well, I know that we here do think that way because here is Tattooed with Children. And I'm Flavor Ray in Seat A, your host. Across from me in Seat B is the Dread Pirate Benjamin. And across from us both is the incomparable CIO No Pain. Guys, it's rainy today. It's a Monday. My voice is a cross between Morgan Freeman and a sump pump. So, how's it going?
I don't know. It's so far it's been an eventful Monday. Just a lot of little things kind of stacking up. A lot of serious conversation. A lot of just things that have to be dealt with. I think everybody feels this way about Monday, but I could be wrong. The tough thing about this shooting is that I don't know necessarily if I don't know where to start about it because it doesn't come as a surprise. And I think what is bothering you and a lot of people is not the details of the case.
No, the details of the case at this point are rather mundane.
It's the fact that, like a lot of other things, the conversation isn't happening around it.
Yes, that's the problem. So,
So
literally, the newsrooms, when they got this story across the wire, like all the articles are officer involved shooting, innocent lady in her house, family demands answers. And then the cops released a body cam of the policeman that was there, not the shooter, and they released a picture of a gun that they found inside the lady's house, as if that was an important detail. Now, ostensibly, they released that picture for when they have to face the public and say, oh, well, this lady was a perceived threat because she was carrying a gun or had a gun or saw a gun once time in her life.
Well, but we have to go back a little bit because, again, if we're going to have the conversation around it, the reality is that we have to start from the beginning. So let's start it at a beginning. So law enforcement has changed quite a bit over the last 20 years even. You say, well, Ben, that's a bad place to start. No, it really isn't. It's really a good place to start. Law enforcement has changed a lot because these guys are going in thinking, I'm going to do traffic routines, I'm going to do domestic violence,
Right.
I'm going to do some drug arrest, so on and so forth. And then they get into their third week and they find themselves up against body armor,
Right.
assault rifles,
Right.
and people that are medicated out of their minds.
Right.
Now let's just talk about the fact for a second that we haven't discussed as a society what to do when you have a person who is on prescription medication that makes them not feel 90% of what another human should be feeling.
Right. Like, how do the cops supposed to handle that person? Are they a patient? Okay, so if they're a patient, then the cops have a certain obligation to protect their lives because that is what cops do. They protect those who cannot protect themselves.
Right.
And a patient can't protect themselves.
Correct.
If they're a criminal, then the cops have a different responsibility to protect the public from them.
Correct.
That is their main responsibility. This person is no longer a member of the public in that officer's capacity because they are a danger to the public.
Correct.
Are they something in between?
Are they civilians?
Are they? Yes.
Okay, so are they, and how do we determine the difference between civilian, patient, or criminal when, quite frankly, all of those look the same?
Right.
Now, you might catch the tone here that there's empathy in my voice. You're not hearing empathy. You're hearing me try to get all the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So now we bring up another issue. And this is a fairly big issue.
Sure.
The Metroplex has not had the greatest last decade of any police force in America, the United States of America.
The Metroplex you refer to is the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
That's correct.
Which has been involved in its fair share of incidents over the last decade.
And we don't have a lot of information about those incidents.
Right.
I'm sure you recall some 3 to 6 months ago, there was an issue of a very, I don't know how to say it, a man in body armor with a lot of ammunition and guns apparently went to a government building and began shooting. And it was the most unreported instance that I think personally I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was very odd that no news outlets picked up on it.
And yet we have video from, very similar to 9/11, we have video from people leaning out of office windows or different things that show this guy kind of acting like he's playing Battlefield Bad Company.
Right.
You know, and But there were, to my knowledge, there were some people wounded and maybe a couple of deaths. But I'm not sure.
I don't know if
besides
anybody.
his.
I don't think anybody died. I think a few people got shot and taken to the hospital, but
But what I'm getting at is, it's not just, that's one tiny example
yeah,
of what they've been through.
right,
They've had an equal amount of officer-involved shootings. They've had an equal amount of defending their life issues, defending the public issues. And if
Right.
you've ever been to the Metroplex, one of the issues that you face is it's massive.
it's huge, and there's like I don't know a dozen and a half police departments.
So when you say, hey, let's go pick up food, you could be saying we're going to run down to the corner, which is 3 minutes away, or we're running down to that restaurant we all really like that's an hour and a half away.
Right,
So it's very difficult to tell whose neighborhood you're in, whose neighborhood you're talking about. Now, my grandparents lived in Hearst.
uh-huh,
The interesting thing about Hearst is you can go down to the grocery store, Brahms, okay?
yeah,
You go past the elementary school. This is within a 6-block radius.
uh-huh,
But if you turn right at the grocery store, within 3 blocks,
You're in a different city.
You don't see English signs
yeah,
for the next 5 miles.
exactly,
It's all Korean.
yeah,
So to the left is English, to the right is Korean. And when I say Korean, I mean there are no signs that say dry cleaners.
right,
And this is a very affluent
Yes.
area of Hearst, by the way.
yeah,
It's a very old area. It hasn't been gentrified because it hasn't gone downhill. But it is a very, very, very nice area
yep,
that within 5 blocks, there's no English signs.
yeah. That's the way they built Dallas-Fort Worth. It was literally as if they took a city and chopped into pieces, and then like jigsaw puzzled the pieces together in a different configuration.
Yeah, so when we used to go, my grandmother would like help out with the food pantries and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah,
We would go to the nearest church. Well, the nearest church was South Korean.
right,
It didn't, there was no word on it. It looked like something from East Texas.
Right, yeah,
But there were no English words.
it was definitely an East Texas church,
Right.
but it was all in South Korean.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm going like, Grandma, what is that language? You know, I'm like 8 years old. I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
You know, and the interesting thing to me is it's fairly diverse, by the way.
yeah, no,
So there
that's
are
the great thing about it is it's all they figured out. This is the same Jesus, guys.
Yeah, so it's like 3 or 4 white people, 3 or 4 black people, and then like 22 South Koreans.
Yeah,
And everything's fine and everything's going well and we helped out, you know. But then you go 3 or 4 blocks past that, and there's all of a sudden the swimming area, you know, the rec center, where 90% of the kids are white, and you're back to the English signs again.
right,
And it's all, and again, there's no difference between the neighborhoods.
right. Yeah,
There's no,
one neighborhood is not nicer than the other one.
right. It's not like even here in Lufkin. Like if you go to South Lufkin, it's like mostly nice.
Yeah.
Right. You go to North Lufkin, it's mostly not nice.
Yeah,
You
it's older and
you
kind
go
of beat
to
up.
West Lufkin, and it feels very industrial,
Yeah,
which is like borders on Hudson. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's like this weird mix of like city, country, and are they?
it's
you
where
know-
it's where they sort of like everyone that kind of wanted to flee the city kind of fled west.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so that was like they're like, okay, there are woods this way. Let's just walk in the woods.
Yeah, so you got like trailer parks and then $1 million homes
Yeah.
within the same
couple of
mile.
blocks.
Yeah, exactly. So I just again,
I live in Hudson, by the way.
This is not empathy as much as it is fact gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you go back to this wellness check. Having some experience, you know, running a coffee shop for 5 years, I will tell you that calling the non-emergency number, at least here, you are actually calling 911.
In this area, and I was going to point this out too, because
Is it different there?
I really believe, I don't know if it's different there, but I honestly believe that they think it's different. Like they think there is a market, in other words, if you call the emergency number, they believe that that is for panic mode.
Okay.
And so the response there will be panic mode.
Okay.
And called their non-emergency number, they believe that the response will be more measured and thought out.
How could that be when it's the same person?
See, that's what I think that may have been a con that got ran on either them or everyone.
But it's not the same person.
It is here.
It is here.
Here?
In
So the 911 dispatcher is not an entity that is funded separately from the police dispatcher.
In East Texas, my experience has been if I call 911, I get the exact same
You get
voice
dispatch.
that I get when I call the non-emergency number.
Dispatch handles it all.
Dispatch handles everything.
Okay.
Dispatch
Like if
handles.
you call, there are three. I have 3 numbers at the job that I work at to call the police. Every one of those numbers goes to the same person.
And this is one area where I'm going to caution us not to attack.
Yeah.
And the reason we're not going to attack is because we don't have all the information yet. So it's very difficult to attack. I'm not asking for a measured response. I'm asking us for us to continue asking questions. Because if all 3 of those numbers go to the same person, we have to look at the fact that person is handling a ridiculous amount of
work.
responsibility.
Right.
You can say work. I say responsibility.
Even if it's a bullpen of people with headsets on, which it has to be in a place the size of Dallas and Fort Worth.
Sure.
They get a call in. They don't know if they're dealing with a pregnancy situation gone wrong. They don't know if they're dealing with a car wreck. And they don't know if they're dealing with my grandson has pitched a fit in the middle of the living room and I can't control him.
Which would lead us, or that my order was late. My
Right.
my DoorDash order or my McDonald's order, I've been at the window for 45 minutes because we've all heard the news reports of those stories.
Right.
But again,
My 2-year-old butt dialed your number. I'm sorry.
yes,
You know,
exactly.
And so every time a call comes in, they have to basically answer them all the same way, no matter what it is. Even if it's very, very intense situation, you're in the trunk of a car, they can't panic on their end. And they have to be conscious of the fact that this could possibly be a prank. Like, they don't know what's actually going on.
Right, and we don't know what's going on.
Right.
And then let's not forget a little bit more information, and I'm not trying to be measured here, I'm just asking. I barely know how to use my cell phone. The Suddenlink people tell me that they can set up. Suddenlink is a local telecom
yeah.
company. They
Television,
tell me
phone, all that shit.
they tell me that they can set up a digital fence to when my phone drives down Frank Street, I will begin getting advertisements for gummy bears.
Right.
Okay. Well, if the local telecom company can set that up, who else can set that up?
Pretty much anybody with enough tech know-how and money can set up a digital fence. And that's kind of the perfect thing for
But I think what I'm asking is, if you're not a good example. If I struggle to keep up with tech, then how is bureaucracy keeping up with tech? Because bureaucracy doesn't have an answer yet for whether or not. I mean, they're having to rewrite everything because now every human has a personal cell phone.
right.
Every single human. My 11-year-old does. Okay? Let's take a quick break.
My name ain't Mikey, but yeah, I rock. You know why? Because I don't give a fuck. That's why.
All right, we're back off break, guys. This is a serious conversation, I know, and I apologize a bit for it to get so serious on Monday, but I feel serious about it. Like, this is one of those things that's been bothering me since the story happened, and it's not for the reason that people might think. Like, I do feel bad that a person who died didn't need to. But what's actually bothering me is the state of our society in regards to the police. Guys, we have a police force that is made up mostly of rookies, mostly of inexperienced personnel who have not seen the situations in the past that led to what they're facing now.
Right.
And so it's out of context.
What you're drawing off of here, Ray, is that we're experiencing new things, so you're assuming correctly that they're also having to experience new things.
Yes. The world changes so rapidly now, and oftentimes in ways that are unpredictable, to the point that authorities or bureaucracies, which oftentimes have a hard time adjusting to change, are having a very difficult time adjusting to these big sea changes in human behavior. So the police forces are undermanned. They didn't know they were going to be undermanned 10 years ago.
Right.
They thought they had plenty of personnel. They thought their projections were correct.
Right.
They didn't realize what was going to happen with methamphetamines and prescription drugs and opiates, and how the internet prank wars were going to affect our food safety and so on and so forth.
Right. And then the amount of videos being put out of games being played or things being done in public, and the fact that now your texting and messaging ability is so quick that you're literally able to ambush people in real time.
Right.
Okay.
You're able to make a 12-man ambush in about 12 minutes, which is very, very new.
Right. And that used to be very difficult to do. You couldn't pin a map.
Right.
5 years ago.
And say, everybody meet here.
Whereas today, I can pin a map and send it to you in the next 6 seconds.
Right.
And then you can forward it to 12 guys that you know are with the Bloods, 6 guys you know are with the Crips, and
right.
then an all-out war ensues unless they're smart enough not to trust you.
Right.
And so these rookies you're describing, they don't know what they're walking into.
Right. They have no idea how to handle it once they get there.
Right. My dad used to describe this one event where he actually did. He didn't pull his gun very often, but he actually did, and it was like 100 acres of warehouses.
Uh-huh.
And they kept getting called because the alarms keep going off.
Uh-huh.
Well, 99 out of 100 times, there's no one there.
Right.
And then in the next moment, there's a door open and someone walks out at 4 a.m. This person has no vehicle.
Right.
This person, and all of a sudden, you're in a dark alley with a human you've never met.
With someone.
In 100 acres of black warehouse.
It's just you and them.
And how do you determine...
What do you do to figure out what's happening? Is this a vagrant that just woke up? Is this a burglar that just finished up? Is this a guy dumping a body? You don't fucking know.
Is it a security guard? Is it again, you don't have any context. And so the adrenaline that flows through a human being for the mountain lion attack is the exact same adrenaline that flows through a human being for a dark alley and a person not knowing what to do.
So one of the responses to that from the people who are in charge of these guys is that they have simplified their training to, I believe, the detriment of all of us. But it was an honest response to a very difficult issue they had, where the situation was changing so rapidly, they didn't actually have a method to deal with it. And so they have. I remember this very clearly during one of the shootings 4 years ago. One of the sheriffs in this area got on television and said, "Look, if an officer feels fear, he should defend himself." And then the reporter asked, "Wait, you mean with his gun?" And Sheriff went, "Yeah, he should defend himself, when you feel internally that something's wrong. And that flew right in the face of everything I knew about cops. Like, everything I knew about cops. Like, that's skipping the ladder of force. That's skipping the rules of engagement. I mean, he's going from skipping tasers and pepper sprays and mace and nightsticks.
And simple de-escalation.
Verbal de-escalation. Skipping all of that, say to you, if you're afraid, jerk your weapon. Like, no cop before that time had ever said anything like that in my knowledge of 35, 36 years at the time.
But I think that is one of the most important and poignant points that's been made so far.
Uh-huh.
I don't necessarily think the sheriff was wrong, but his application of what he was trying to convey, I do think is wrong, personally. You know, I don't think it's wrong to say if a cop feels fear, they should defend themselves.
Uh-huh.
I agree with that statement. But the response to wait with their gun, that was a tone-deaf and irresponsible response.
Okay, but then we get into, was it? Because for the first time, we have a situation where we don't, there are no rules of engagement. So
I mean, the fact of the matter is that grandmother's house that you go to, there could be a kid there with an assault rifle.
Yeah,
waiting at the door.
How do you perform a wellness check when every citizen of this state not only believes that it's their right, okay, to have an assault weapon, which means a weapon that shoots more bullets and faster than anything the cop has. So he's outgunned already. Because it's how do you perform a wellness check on someone who has more than you do?
Why should a cop go into, well, okay, let's take it back to the situation, the core of here. We've been discussing a lot of semantics, right? Let's go back to the situation in question.
Okay, we could do that. Go on.
The cops were asked to perform a wellness check. Okay.
Yes.
What reason did the cop have to fear for their lives enough to use lethal force?
They walk up to the house. The house has all of its lights on. It's very late at night, and the door is open. Okay, so a door staying wide open at 2 o'clock in the morning, all the lights on, is unusual. That is it.
But see, this goes back to why are we as a society accepting of a police officer being called to a drive-through because your order isn't there?
Exactly.
So, in other words, we deem these men and women, okay, are at our insistence to go anywhere and do anything.
And keep in mind what I said before. They do not have the personnel to do this. They do not have the training to do this.
I agree with you that it's an odd situation, but I do not agree that this is outside standard operating procedure.
No, it's within standard operating procedure. There's a procedure for it. The point I was making is that procedure no longer fits our situation.
Well, and neither was the response initially. As said, you had three police vehicles show up as opposed to just one, right?
Now, why'd you have 3 vehicles show up? You had 3 vehicles show up because 2 of the officers there had only been on the force for 2 months, and so they still had trainers.
That's fair. And I'm not saying that response wasn't warranted, especially with a weird situation. Okay, look, here's a situation. As a matter of fact, I think the next step they took was even the correct situation, where you say, okay, we have us here. I want you to cover the perimeter, right? And then once the perimeter was covered, we should be talking about, okay, now you perform the wellness check according to standard operating procedure. Go up to the open door, cautiously to the side, hand on your weapon, but not drawn, and from there, knock and try to get a response from somebody. Like, I don't see why that's outside the realm of realistic.
It's not outside the realm of realistic. It's just one of those things that is more difficult to occur here. I'm trying to figure out how to explain it where it makes some sense.
But I think the issue that you're having explaining it is in other words, the three of us can't agree on this. We're not going to agree on this.
No, I just want to keep talking about it.
And I'm fine with the conversation continuing because we're not throwing anyone under the bus yet. This conversation is still a safe place for all three opinions and for our three opinions about the two people or the
Right.
two groups of people in the conversation, meaning the civilians in the conversation and the law enforcement in the conversation. We're still considering it. Okay, Michael, do you know if, let's just keep the conversation rolling. Do you know if it is included in standard operating procedure for police officers to be taught how to perform a wellness check in the middle of the night? Is that standard operating procedure?
Welfare checks, as far as I know, yes. I mean, it's such standard operating procedure that it's entered into the public entertainment lexicon.
Okay,
Watch any
but-
cop show, basically. Is what I'm
Oh,
saying.
okay, but see,
Well-
see, brother, I got to be
And
real
I'm-
with you. I
remember there was a show called NYPD Blue. Remember that one? Sipowicz and,
Yeah.
and that gang.
Yeah.
Like that was a show that was about police procedurals, and it was very accurate to the
Right.
way cops think in New York.
Okay.
That show no longer applies. Like literally, everything in that show is an anachronism. They don't operate that way anymore. So the things that we know from police procedurals or the zeitgeist about police isn't accurate anymore.
Or is it, and we just have so much other information? Because again,
Well-
because again, we're thinking that their job is to respond the way The Rock did in that movie,
Right.
and in reality, it isn't part of the training course. Because again, it is a very different thing to perform a wellness check during the day
Right. It's still 2:00 in the morning.
instead of 2 o'clock in the morning.
Now, here's a you might be thinking that I am being pro police right now, and that's not the case. What I'm doing here is acknowledging the fact that I work around law enforcement a lot, and I know at least 5 instances in the last month where the cops had every right to kill someone and didn't do it. And the situation was better for it. Like they were completely in the right if they had pulled their guns and fired, and they didn't do it. Now that's just in my city. So I know that there are more people who are living from cops than are dying from cops. But if you look at it at these specific situations that go wrong, you start to think that there is something fundamentally broken about the police, and that's not the case. I believe the case is that the cops have to get their shit together. In other words, they have to adjust to the current situation. It's just slow. It's just a slow process to figure out how the training needs to change. And all these instances give them more information, and they adjust a little bit, but then you have another set of rookies that come in because this rookie shot a woman through a window, so he's gone. Even if they don't fire him, that kid's not pulling his gun again ever.
Right.
Like, he's not going to do it. Like, you might think that he was race. Like, I don't even know what race the cop was, and it doesn't even fucking matter.
No,
the
because-
fact of the matter is, he shot a woman through a window by accident. It was one bullet that jumped out of his gun before he even said he was a policeman.
That I think encapsulates the general public's mood about a situation like this. The fact that you can even say that the people we trust the most, or that we should trust the most with the usage of lethal force,
Right.
can have a situation where a bullet comes out of their gun by accident is a problem.
Who are these people? Who are these people who are being recruited by the police? They're not former soldiers. right?
Yes. And if you
It's your goddamn little brother who couldn't get another job.
Right, exactly. If you believe Sarah Silverman, it's everyone who got a C in high school. Okay, that kind of mentality, then that is another issue on the public side of look at the set of expectations we set.
But can I speak for the public?
Please do.
What do you mean who we trust? You just said who we trust. Motherfucker, my people don't trust anyone. We don't trust the police. We don't trust the politicians. We don't trust our church leaders. My motherfucking people don't go to the church. We don't go to their buildings.
We don't go to the church. We don't call the cops. See, that's us.
I don't trust anybody.
I get that, and you know where I stand on that, right? My take on it is, and it could be 100% wrong, I think the general public is going to be different from how we here look at this.
I don't think so.
Not in this area. Not about the police.
I think this is the conversation. But see, this is the conversation. I think the reason you brought this up today, the reason we started heavy and we're staying heavy,
right,
is because the conversation that's not happening right now is that I don't trust anyone.
Yeah, I mean the real conversation is like I gave this example off the air. Like I got pulled over a few months ago, and it was early in the morning. I don't normally drive early in the morning. I had to go to work early, and a cop pulled me over. He said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that your taillight was out." Mm-hmm. And he didn't ask for my insurance. He just took my license, went and ran it, came back and said, "Hey, man, have a good morning," and left. Now, I knew when he pulled me over that he was lying about why he pulled me over.
Okay.
It was a bold-faced lie. He pulled me over because I was a black man in a large truck coming down a road that I had never driven that early before.
Okay.
Now, he had been there in that same spot every morning for the last 6 months and never seen me. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I appear. Mm-hmm. So he just wanted to pull me over and know who I was.
Sure.
Like, that's not a bad thing. I wasn't mad about it.
Okay.
When they pulled me over, I was leaning on my brake and my light was out. And so he knew he had something to talk about when he got to the window. Okay. It made it very easy for him. If it was a different reason, he would have asked my insurance.
Right.
All right? So yes, I trust that he's doing his job, mm-hmm. but I also know that part of his job is to fish. It's to get stuff out of me.
But see, this is how we've broadened, and I understand that the argument can be made.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The argument can be made that I am increasing the amount of nuance with every sentence.
Sure.
That's fine, but I feel like we've gone from the head of a pen that you write with. We've gone from the head of a pen to a map the size of a garage. You know, if you laid it out on the floor, it would take up a 20 by 20 area. And each of these points we're hitting is the size of a pin. Why do I say that? Because you just said you had an expectation that that's what he was doing in the definition of his job, the way Mike said a second ago that he had an expectation that this was included within the police officer's training, okay? And I understand both of those things, but here's what I'm going to tell you. In the last 10 years, I have not had a conversation with another human that would imply that either of y'all's expectations has been thought about by any other person. So you're coming from a singular vantage point here that I don't know. I don't have the information you have. Mike is coming from a singular vantage point. So that means that Jason from Loud House CrossFit is coming from a singular vantage point. That Richard from Berkshire Brothers is coming from a singular vantage point, okay? Yeah. And none of these vantage points,
shifting points of view,
interact with each other the way they used to, because in previous societies, we would have interacted with each other at the Lions Club.
Right. Now our primary interaction is social media.
Or we would have, That now you bring up a very interesting point. You know why? 2 of the people I just mentioned don't have social media.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So you're assuming even, I'm assuming even, we're assuming we don't have the Lions Club, we don't have the local pool, we don't have the local pool hall, we don't have the local restaurant.
Right.
As far as my people go, we don't even go in the grocery store anymore. When I say my people, I mean my limited family, wife, children, so on. We don't even go in the grocery store anymore. We order it and they come out to us.
Right.
Well, I haven't been in Walmart in probably
So
24
some
months.
of you may not be communicating with anyone, anyone outside of their immediate family.
And so what happens to that human being who drives down that road and does not know that the rules have changed?
Right.
He doesn't have social media, or he does, and that just simply further skews it, because all he heard about this week is what happened in Philadelphia, Detroit, and the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and he is not aware of the fact. I mean, his mother's been in the hospital for the last 12 months.
Right.
He's just happy to be keeping his wife and kids fed. He's happy to make it to the hospital on time. He's praying to figure out how to overcome these medical bills. He does not know that the rules have changed.
Right.
And that all of a sudden, he's going to face this police officer whose training may or may not be what he thinks, or may be reliant on Sipowicz from 22 years ago.
Maybe he's actually going to face an anachronism in uniform. Like, I know that sounds hopeless. Like, I heard that in my voice just then. That sounds absolutely hopeless, and it's not what I'm trying to do here.
No, and I don't think it is what we're trying to do here, but I think this one may run a little long, because what we are trying to do here, one of the reasons we put these mics in front of our faces is to identify something that really bothers us. And quite frankly, it has been a while since we talked about the things that bothered us.
Yeah,
We haven't even gotten to Johnny from Brookshire Brothers. We haven't gotten to Andy from Furniture Fetish. We haven't gotten to Billy from Custom Wheels Incorporated.
Right.
We
actually haven't touched our primary issue yet, which is, I'm sorry, listeners, it's true. The primary issue hasn't been approached yet, and we don't even have time to do it today. And
that's mostly because of the dog.
And now Dapple wants to interject his point. So on that point, we're going to go ahead and forgo the rest of this conversation for a future podcast. This has been Tattoo with Children. I'm Flavor Ray. You can find us on Instagram at Tattoo with Children and Facebook at Tattoo with Children. You can find us on Twitter at Tattooed with, because
Fuck Jack.
Fuck Jack. And you can find Ben Harbuck at Black Crow Brother on IG. You can also find him at Black Spot Tattoo Company. And you can find Mike Payne on IG at CIO Payne and at Payne.points.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And this is one of those that we're going to be coming back to probably over and over again, because it's a deep conversation, it's a needed conversation, and it's one of those things that I believe eventually people can look back at, listen to, and get some insight from. And that's really my primary goal.
And it'll be, and I'm going to interrupt your close, but this is the start of that conversation.
Yes.
It's going to take us a little while, to the tune of, me and you may have to record on a cell phone at 2 a.m, because it's the only time we've got, and it's going to take us more than one go-round.
No, this is a 6-hour recording, basically.
To get to the topic that we need to be on.
Yeah. To even get to the actual issue, it's going to take us a while circling it. Because people, we are so twisted right now. If we were all a foodstuff, we would be salted pretzels. And that is just walking around salted pretzels. All right, on that note, this is the end of the show, guys. We got to go smoke.
All right.
I love you guys.
Peace out.
take it.